Welcome, everybody. Welcome. You guys hear me okay?
I hear you fine.
All right, hold on.
Yeah.
Earpiece. All right, there we go. My thing wasn't plugged in right. I was doing something.
Your thing wasn't plugged in. Yeah.
No. All right. Well, here we are. Now, I'm not sure about Nikki tonight. Nikki might. I don't know. I haven't heard from her. So, yeah, it was actually been a little hectic since I've been home this evening. I've been dealing with a lot of different things, and since I've been off of work, I've been riding around all day, and I thought I was going to have to do some more this evening, but I think it got worked out. So, yeah. So you guys get to see this blank, this green sheet behind me because I didn't have time to set up my green screen as I usually do because I didn't have the light fixture set up or nothing. So we're just gonna do it like this tonight.
Awesome.
Yeah. Pat, I know you got a couple things you wanted to bring up and talk about, which I'm actually kind of excited about that because that's something I've talked about in the past. We're gonna get to that very shortly. I think for starters, we're gonna get with Wayne because Wayne's been out in the woods. He was out in the woods this past weekend, and we're gonna get with him too. I'd like to know what he had going on. And before we get into that, let me make a mention, a reminder for everybody. I will be gone tomorrow. I'll be headed out in the morning. There is a good group of us that will be out in the woods camping. We'll be gathering out, hanging around the campfire, and sharing stories, exchanging stories, and I'll be doing kind of a presentation, more or less giving a history of my experiences in that area. I think it's going to be fun. So yeah, a lot of us are looking forward to that. So, and I've been in contact with that group tonight. So it's just like I said on my end, it's been a little hectic because I've have a lot going on, so I'm trying to balance it all right now, and
Yeah.
So well, I'll tell you what, yeah, Wayne, you don't mind if I put you on the spot, do you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Well, how about you tell us about what you've been up to and anything you may have found or anything you found interesting. Definitely, please feel free to share it. So.
Yeah, I wish I would have sent you some pictures, but that didn't happen. So maybe I can get them to you, and maybe next time we can get them up. But yeah, like Daniel was saying, we had a big trip planned. It went on this past weekend, last Friday and Saturday night. We had the old bear from Old Bear's Den of Bigfoot came down from West Virginia, and did a little expedition with him. And we also had Janice Carter. Sure, a lot of you know who Janice is. Janice came out along with Ninja Dave, who is another Bigfoot researcher. So we had a real good time out there, man. We had some crazy stuff going on. The initial plan was for Old Bear to come down from West Virginia on Friday night, and we were all going to go out and do an expedition. We did that. Saw a couple signs, saw some ground sticks, found what looked like a bedding area where something large had been bedded down and laying. Got a couple of whoops while we were out there. But the next night, Saturday night, was when we were supposed to do a live show on Old Bear's channel, where he was going to interview members of my group, Manimal Research, and also going to interview Janice and Dave. Well, my partner and my partner Walls, if anybody that watches our show, Manimal Research, Walls is my co-host. We went out early Saturday morning over to the location where we were going to film the interview portion. It happened to be friends of Walls that lived about 30, 45 minutes away from where we were camping, and they had some stuff going on at their property. Well, we get over there, and the lady of the house is the one that has been seeing them. The husband has seen them one time, and he took us out back. He took Walls and myself out back to show us around, and we weren't out there for 2 minutes before a tree was pushed over or fell over or something. It sounded like a very, very large tree. There
Oh
was no
wow.
wind, no wind at all. It was completely still. It sounded like it wasn't very far away. So we had that tree pushed over. That got our attention because in all my years, of going out in the woods, not just doing this, but also going out in the woods myself, I've never heard a tree fall. We all know that they do. But I mean, have you guys ever been out there and heard a tree fall?
Yeah.
Actually, a few times.
Daniel, have you?
Yeah, actually a few times. But
Have you?
yeah, real quick, if you don't mind. So I've actually had one happen this week on the delivery. I was down in you know down in Bedford County, and I was delivering to a landscape company, and it was down off of a back road. There was a few houses along the way, but the particular stretch that I was driving down before I had to turn into the business. Yeah, keep in mind it was all woods. It was all woods right there on the one side of the road. But as soon as I pull up into the landscape company, I park the truck, throw the air brakes on, and shut off the vehicle, get out. Not
Hmm.
even 5 seconds after I had stepped out of the vehicle, I hear a crack, boom, right by where I turned at. I was like, because over there, like I said, keep in mind it's all woods over there. I said, I'm looking over there, I'm staring in the woods. Of course, I thought Bigfoot. I was like, well, maybe he's over there, but I don't know. I didn't see what pushed that tree over, but something did it. It was like you said, no wind, nothing. But
Yeah,
it was cool though. But I went about my business. I had stuff to deliver.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, it's not a common thing, especially not for me, because it was the first time it had ever happened to me. So that got our attention, got the goosebumps up and everything. So we took a little walk around the property, saw uh, we found a TP structure, several tree breaks, and right beside a pretty good TP, there was an X on the ground. I have pictures of all those. Like again, I wish I would have sent you, but I do have pictures of that stuff. We finished up our investigation there, and we went back to the camp where everyone else was hanging out, and ate a little dinner. And the plan was by nightfall we'll head back over to this property, use their Wi-Fi to do our live broadcast, and yeah, do a little nighttime investigation along with the interviews there. So we get there, and unfortunately, we get there, and old bear comes up to me because we finally got some cell service. He comes up to me with tears in his eyes, and he says that they just got a phone call that his daughter had been rushed to the hospital with bleeding on her brain.
Oh my.
So, and she
Yikes.
has cancer. She has cancer. So I told him, man, go. Family's more important. I don't care. Just go. And they're in. Keep in mind, they're in Tennessee, or no, actually, they're in North Georgia at this point because this is where this land was. So he had to drive all the way back to West Virginia. He and his wife, with some very bad news. So
Wow.
we didn't get to do the interview with the old bear, and he had to drive back up there. And I talked to him the next day. It turns out his they found several tumors on his daughter's brain, and it's not looking great. So I've asked everybody when I did my show Monday night, and I'd like to ask everybody here if you're familiar with Old Bear, and even if you're not, guys, say a prayer for them, for their family, especially for the daughter. And if you do that kind of thing, if you pray, I ask that you'll do that. Take a couple minutes and do that because Old Bear is an awesome guy. He really, really is. And this is messing with them pretty bad. So as as it would be any of us.
Yeah, man.
But anyway, all that
That's
said,
that's
what's
too
that?
bad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. We finished up our investigation there. Janice Carter was there, and a couple of people heard some chatter. I didn't hear this chatter. I wish to God I could. I don't. I mean, I don't know why other people were sitting there talking about how they could hear this chatter, and I'm standing right beside them, and I don't hear anything. They're talking about how faint the noise is. It sounds like people. They said it sounded like people talking in a language that they couldn't understand, but very faint. And I couldn't hear it. I don't know why. I'm the kind of person that I'm not going to go along with it and say, yeah, I hear that. I'm not going to say I hear it unless I hear it. But 2 or 3 other people claimed that they heard it, and I can't doubt them. I just didn't hear it.
Yeah.
But a couple of wood knocks, a couple of whoops, stuff like that. We head back to our camp about 1 o'clock, and that's when everything just went to, you know what? It got crazy. It got
Right.
crazy when we got to camp.
Really?
A few hours earlier, we heard that tree fall or pushed over. I'll be danged if another one didn't happen about an hour after we got back to camp.
Wow.
Another tree not far from us was either fell or pushed over, one of them. Again, it's never happened to me in my entire life. And then I got 2 within a couple hour span and about 40 miles apart. So that was
Hey,
strange.
Can I interrupt you real quick and ask a question?
Go ahead.
Well, this is what I'm thinking, and this is the same thing I thought. These are certain things I have to think about, even when I'm experiencing something or hearing something. There's certain questions come to mind dealing with particular occurrences. Now, in this area or in this general area, has there been any recent rain within the last 24 hours?
No.
Yeah. And where we were, it rained. It rained quite a bit while we were there.
In North Georgia?
Well, this was last weekend, Pat. It rained.
Okay. Yeah.
It
right.
rained buckets.
Okay.
It rained hard on us.
It was that.
Okay.
I think it was wasn't it the remnants of the hurricane passing through
Yes.
last weekend? Yeah. Yes. North Georgia got a ton of rain, so that could have been a factor.
Exactly.
Well,
that's what I was thinking.
That's part of the reason why I'm asking it, and I'm not saying, well, there's your suspect. No, it's a suspect, but not the
right.
We don't know if that's the cause, because a lot of trees, especially if they're shallow rooted, the ground stays wet for so long. I know sometimes just that weight, just the weight and the weakness of the ground gets so weak, it decides to want to, crash, tumble.
That's very common. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, we don't know that. It could, because when I hear these things, I got to keep that open mindset. Maybe something had to help push it over, or whatever. You know what I mean? But
Wayne, here's the question: were you able to identify the trees the next day in daylight, and how big were they?
Janice and Dave got in the car and they drove down the road, and they were able to find this tree because it fell across the highway, the road. It was a very, very large tree. I didn't get to see it. Someone showed up there and was able to get it out of the road, to get it out of the way. But they said this tree was stripped of bark for a certain portion of it. And they were able to see the tree. The other tree, no. Well, we didn't go looking for it.
Yeah, I would just say it depends on how big the tree is, because if it's a 100-foot pine tree, I'm not thinking at all a Bigfoot could push it down. A freaking elephant, an elephant could not push it down, more than likely. It kind of depends on the size of the tree and the type. Again, like Daniel was saying, it's actually a lot of the bigger root system trees that, with the moisture and the ground, if the ground gets too slushy, those big root systems are so important to the trees, they fail. That's why they fall.
Yeah. That was the first thing I thought too. With all the rain that we had gotten, the soil was soft. I mean, it was definitely could be a contributing factor. But then when I thought about absolutely no wind at all, it seems like wouldn't the tree need a push? What or would it? I don't know. I'm asking.
Well,
be a shift, erosion shift in the soil, like I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that does happen.
Yeah, especially what's the proper way to put this? Yeah, when there's erosion, sometimes a lot of times erosion is not always on the outside. Sometimes erosion happens underneath. Like for example, that's where your sinkholes and stuff like that form and happen. So apparently, if there's any bit of movement in the earth, shifting, and that's one thing I would consider. But if the earth is shifting and there's things happening underneath our feet, we don't always feel things like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I don't know. It's hard for me to explain at the current moment, but
You
I guess
know,
things, dude.
short of actually putting your eyes on a Bigfoot pushing the tree over, there's always going to be that doubt.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody saw that.
Yeah.
So
Especially two falls,
that's what was strange, and like I said, Janice and Dave got out and drove around looking for that tree. And when they did, Walls and Walls is on right now. He's making a couple comments. That's Derek Jasper Walls there.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
He and I went for a little walk down the road, and there was a lot of people at this campsite. And we went for a little walk, and we were about 30, 40 yards away from our site, and a huge limb came crashing down, and because we were right at the foot of a ridge, and a huge limb came crashing down and landed between our two campsites.
Oh,
So
wow.
don't know if something was thrown, don't know if the limb broke,
Yeah.
I don't know, but it got our attention, and we got back, and it was just the most uneasy feeling that we had ever had. And I'm not gonna lie, 3 o'clock in the morning we started packing up.
Really?
Both of our camps, we made the decision that we were done, that
Wow.
it was either just a coincidence that all this stuff was happening or something didn't want us there. So we packed up and we left. And I'll be honest, afterward, and Walls will attest to this because we talked about it, that I felt like crap afterward. I felt like I maybe should have stood my ground a little bit, but I mean, what if we had and something had happened,
Well, here's the thing. This is my opinion because I felt like I've been in similar situations. There has been situations where I've actually packed up and left. There actually has. I was by myself, and I'll give it the scenario real quick because this particular location I've been there twice. The first time was with the old timer who took me to this location. He took me there for the very fact where that was one of his favorite getaway spots. The other thing is too, he's heard things out there, and then he's had a couple that shared information with him while he was camping out there. There was a couple that packed up and left because something or someone was throwing large rocks into their camp, and they heard a loud scream that they never heard before. Well, of course, they told him, they informed him on their way out because they felt it was necessary for him to know while they were leaving. And he actually investigated that spot, but where they were camping at, and he actually claimed to hear something too. But my point is, as far as that location, he took me there. Me and him camped there. The day I went by his house, I told him, "Hey, look, I want to go out there to that spot where you told me about. I want to check it out." He said, "Hey, hold up, wait, I ain't doing nothing. I'll come with you. I'll camp." I felt better anyway because it was new to me. He knew the area. Me and him camped there one night together, and he calls it Whispering Hollow. He declared it that name. That was his nickname he gave the spot. And I learned why it was called Whispering Hollow. Because this here is not far from the West Virginia line. And it was very deep in the woods. And right in that particular area, because you got to go up the mountain and all the way back down the mountain into this hollow. And above you, you got these major power lines that run all the way. They lead into West Virginia. It's a big power line system. And of course, at nighttime, when all the dampness and the cool air settles down into the hollow, and then you got the overhead power lines. They start snap, crackle, and pop, making all their crispy sounds. And with that, and the way the fog settles in on the bottom, it gets kind of eerie. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where he declared it Whispering Hollow. Well, anyway, our first night there went pretty good. We did have a bear not too far off. Of course, we heard a loud grunt, and it's like we looked at each other, and it's like he's like, "That's a bear," and it's pretty close. So we started banging, making all kinds of noises, and after we settled down. Not long later after that, we went to bed. So like maybe a week or two later, I said, "Man, I got to go back out there. I need to investigate the area. I need to explore the area more for myself." Um, so I did. I during the day I had a lot. I explored quite a bit. I've actually got pictures of tracks I found out there. Yeah, very impressive tracks if you ask me. Um, Now later that night, that's when things got interesting. This is where I packed out camp because um, I'm sitting there at nighttime. I got lanterns going. I did have a sidearm with me. It was sitting there beside me. And somewhere off to my far left, just kind of behind me, but off to my left, I heard this big tree snap. And I said, "What the heck?" And I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a bear in the area. And I did the same thing. I was by myself. I started banging on jugs real loud. And in that area, that's really loud because that old area puts out a lot of bass because you're down in that hollow. And I guess that sound's bouncing off of these bridges. And so anyway, I put everything down. I sit back down, and I'm kind of relaxed a little bit. And probably about 5 minutes or more so later, a much louder crack and a thump all together. It was one of the other. It was crack and a thump. But guess what? It was right behind my tent, and it was
Yeah.
very close. And I grabbed my spotlight. I grabbed my gun, and I kind of like doing a cop does. I had the spotlight going like this, and like, and I was like,
Yeah.
"What the heck?" But the thing is, the fog was so thick, I couldn't see nothing. And I started yelling into the woods, like, "Hey, hey, who's there?" But all of a sudden, all these thoughts ran through my head. I didn't know what to think. I just started grabbing my most valuables, threw them in my vehicle, and drove back up that mountain, got out of Dodge, and got into the town where I got service again. So I called, I like the first person I found, I called Dad. I said, "Dad, you ain't gonna believe what happened." I don't know. I'm not saying it's a squatch. It could have been a big bear, but I wasn't trying to find out. So,
Yeah.
but
It's man, it is so unsettling. And I can sit here now in the comfort of my house and talk about, man, I wish I would have stayed and all this, but at the time, staying just didn't seem very appealing to me or to any of us. When you add everything up that happened and you put it all together, it just felt like something was wrong. We weren't supposed to be there, and the smart thing was to just leave. So all the expeditions I've been on, I've never left before. I've hung in there. I've stayed. I've been freaked out before. This is the first time.
yeah,
So
How many people, Wayne?
how many people were with us right then?
Yeah.
Five of us in two
That's
camps.
cool, man. They won't. I mean, they're not going to come too close, man. With
I
five
agree with that.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And like I said, I should have stayed. It's when you got people in this ear and then people in this ear. No, we need to go. I know what this isn't good. This is. If anybody knows who Janice Carter is and knows anything about her, now I don't want to say a whole lot because we're going to have her on our show. She's going to be our 50th episode guest. So she is a
yeah.
little bit out there. I'll put it that way.
That's what I've
And
heard of her. Yeah, because
she,
I remember you asked me about her, and I didn't know nothing about her except for what I was told. Which
yeah,
you don't go by what other people tell you because you got to find out for yourself. So I
Yeah.
mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll tell you from meeting her and going on this expedition, everything led up to there. a great woman, extremely nice, very, very knowledgeable. She's very intelligent. She's educated. She's very well spoken. She knows her stuff, and she told me some stuff that she shouldn't know. I'll just put it that way. And she did the same thing with my partner, Wall. She told him something that she shouldn't know, and I'll just leave it there.
All right,
You know.
fair enough. But yeah, I mean, look, if there's 5 of you out there, and some people feel really uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and they start saying, I want to go. I mean, then yeah, don't beat yourself up, man.
Yeah.
Like it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You probably would have been breaking camp at 10 o'clock in the morning anyway, just to say, hey, let's just wrap it up. I mean, it's kind of a pain in the butt, I know, but yeah, don't beat yourself up over it, man. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, nothing I can do about it now. It's a learning experience. Like I
yeah,
said, if I could go back, I probably would have tried to tough it out. And if they wanted to leave, they could leave, and I would stay behind. But I can tell you right now, they weren't staying. The 3
right.
others were not staying.
There you
So
go.
it would have been Walls and myself by ourselves for the rest
Well,
of the time.
this
Right.
is the thing what everybody should keep in mind, and when you're having an experience and you're safer in numbers.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys heard that saying. You're always safer in numbers, regardless.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
I definitely feel when you're by yourself, it is most definitely easy to feel intimidated during whatever, even if it's something well, let me put it this way. I find it like with the little scenario I just shared a little while ago. I think it's more frightening when you don't see what you're dealing with. You know,
Exactly.
and I think it's a different situation. Like I've had so many encounters with bears, but if that was a bear, it was a very bold bear because most of the
Hmm.
bears I've ever dealt with were being scared off. They were headed in the other direction. You
Yeah,
know,
they're
I,
ridiculous, man.
but
Yeah.
but you just never know. But knowing where I was and knowing the stories I've heard about the aggressive, I've heard aggressive stories about Bigfoots in West Virginia. Uh, and the thing is, I was still in Virginia, but I was still very close to Virginia. I mean, West Virginia. So in the back of my mind, it's like, man, they might be some mean bastards out here, because you're out here in the middle of nowhere. You're far from wherever. I was like, and that's not my main research area. That was a place I was introduced to because of stories that were told out there. Bear hunters have claimed to have seen squatches out there watching them over a tree. Now, and that's one of the areas why I wanted to go out there, because when I heard about bear hunters out there claiming to see stuff that are not bears, then that right there told me that's what I want to start paying attention to, because bear hunters know a bear. If they see a
Yeah.
bear, they're going to be able to identify a bear. So when they see this hairy figure standing up on 2 legs, looking at them beside a tree, I mean, that's something to me right there. That's
Yeah.
exciting. So,
Well,
but
yeah. And I mean, that's why I don't, I don't solo. I just won't do it. I refuse to do it. You
yeah,
know, and in beautiful God's country, so I might go someplace where I know they're not going to be some cheesy like Army Corps of Engineer campsite on the lake or something, which is probably more fun in the summer. They don't let you drink there. You can't drink. It's like I might go to some cheesy place in Solo, but where I like feel like there's no Sasquatch coming around here,
yeah.
and but no, man, to go up into the high mountains, the North Georgia mountains, and the beautiful, especially this time of year, I just won't do it. I won't solo, but fortunately, dude, I can always take somebody with me because Kim will go with me, and at least
Yeah.
Well, let me
but
ask you both this question right here. Now, I know Derek's saying never solo. You guys are both kind of saying it. So, but
yeah,
now what? Now, are we talking about during the day or just at night, or what's the deal on that? Like,
like,
'cause the reason I
like
well,
camp, set up the tent,
Camp.
camp build a fire, make food, be there overnight in
Now,
that situation. Yeah.
okay, I can understand that. But see, I've done that numerous times. So, like, in my research area, like where we're going to be tomorrow, I know that area. I mean, you could drop me in the middle of the woods blindfolded, and I could lead a squad out there with no problem. And that's
Yeah.
how well I know the area.
Yeah.
But also, this is in the same general area where we've had encounters. I found the evidence. I've had a lot of different experiences over the years. But here's the thing, and I'm not saying, like, a lot of people say, well, oh, the Squatches get to know you, which in a kind of sense, I almost feel I believe that, but then again, I'm not sure. I believe they do maybe get familiar with you. I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. It's just I try to stay and focus in one particular area out there, and I explore that area quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've been out there numerous times by myself.
You're
Yeah.
nuts. You're not.
Like Pat said, going on a hike. I know I'll do a solo hike. I'll do that all
Yeah,
day, even in areas that I feel like they could be. I've gone and checked areas out in the daytime by myself. But if you pitch that tent, start to cook, all that, don't do that by yourself. And that's my opinion. Daniel is a bona fide badass. We all know that.
I don't know. I don't know about all that, but
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 it's
No.
I
something
like
I
to
won't do.
I
Yeah.
like to test my limits sometimes. I do, and you know I'm not gonna lie. There's when I go hiking by myself, and I go far because there's some places I'll start exploring into, and I start going. I keep going so far, and it's like, oh, I never been out this way. But so I'll start
Yep.
venturing off in this direction, and I'll move in this direction. I stay in a pattern because I understand the direction of the woods. When I go into the woods, I know which way I'm going because if I want to get out, I know which direction to start turning into. But I do venture into areas where, okay, this looks kind of creepy out here. I was like,
Mhm.
you know, but then again, I was like, it doesn't bother me during like, I do a lot of solo hiking during the daytime. I've never done it alone at night, but I've done multiple solo hikes out in the woods. And that's where a lot of my field videos come. If you watch a lot of my field videos that I have, 90% of them are solo. Probably
Yeah.
90. Well, actually, maybe more than that. But so yeah, I take my time when I'm out there. I like to enjoy myself when I'm out there.
Yeah.
You don't, and I'll say this for anybody that decides to go out in the woods. Doesn't matter how deep you're going in the woods. There's some common sense comes into play that you want to have with you. You want to constantly be aware of your surroundings, regardless if you're armed or not. Um, you know, Especially take a lot of extreme caution if you venture into a very thick, heavy area. I've gone through some thick brush and a lot of debris, and in those areas you got to watch out because you're setting yourself up. Because I believe a lot of those thick areas, especially if you're walking into the woods, most of it's open. Then all of a sudden you see all the thick mountain laurel. You know what? That's what bothers me because um, a lot of animals will bed in that. Deer will
Yeah.
bed down into this thick brush. I've had turkeys come out right in front of me. I mean, I spooked up turkeys, deer. I know one of these days I'm gonna walk up on something I don't want to walk up on. But you got to prepare yourself. You got to think like that. And what I do when I come into these thick areas, I say, okay, I'm not sure if I'm gonna walk through this, so I'll try to stay as much on the outside of it and work my way around. And I'll pay attention to all that because something might still pop up. Um, so yeah, I've kicked up all kinds of wildlife out there. You know, but yeah, you just got to have a lot of caution. You got to take the precautions and be careful out there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. You're
it's
exactly right.
it's an adventure by itself. Doesn't matter if you find Bigfoot evidence or not. Just being out there and exploring,
Oh
and
yeah.
and I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah,
But
that's it. I mean, it's a good time. I mean, you're getting out
yeah,
in nature. You're with friends.
right.
If you don't go solo, and you're with friends. You're building that relationship with people. You're getting
Yeah.
out, getting fresh air in your lungs. And there's Ninja Dave. He was
Yeah.
with. That's
Yeah,
one of the
man.
guys that was with us.
And
Oh yeah.
What's up,
that's why
Dave?
that's why my position is like that's why I go out there. You know, and I've said it a million times. I'll say it again, whatever. I don't go out in the woods to go look for Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to come around. I don't want them to ruin my night or, you know, scare my friends or what, you know, like I'm there for the camaraderie, dude. Like, so,
Oh yeah.
so when I go out in the woods, I prefer them to just stay away from me, whether
Yeah.
I'm hiking or camping. You know, I'm not looking for them. I'm not trying to like draw them in, you know. So yeah, it's all about being out in the woods and having fun with your buddies, your friends, your girlfriends, your loved ones, whatever, man. Like, you
Yep.
know, it's
Exactly right.
yeah. So screw them, man. Like that's my take is like screw them. And you guys had to leave that night because some people got spooked, maybe for a good reason.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to ever happen to me, man. Ever. You know, I want to wake up the next morning and cook, you know, cook my bacon and my pancakes and and continue that camaraderie, man. We're all gonna eat, make coffee, and to get that ruined by, you know, well, maybe there's a Bigfoot around.
Yeah.
Like that's that angers me, you know, because we belong out there too. Like
Yeah.
those are our places too, man. And there's plenty of room for both species or whatever the hell they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I've said many times, and I think y'all probably agree, the best way, you know, if you are going out looking to have an experience or an encounter, I think just go camping. I mean, all the stuff that you just talked about that you enjoy, going out with your buddies and you know, getting up, cooking breakfast and cooking your dinner and everything. I think that's the best way to have them come in your area. I think that they're curious. You know, that's in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, what do y'all think?
If you're in the right area, like
Exactly.
I don't think that just manifests anywhere. You know.
Yeah.
It just so happens that, you know, the 2 times it happened to me was I was just camping, just trying to have fun, but I was in the hottest spot in North Georgia. You know? So well, for whatever reason, you know, either they're passing through is kind of my theory. They passed through that patch of woods that I was in. Hey, you know, which is right there nestled at the Appalachian Mountains, you know, so there's a huge area for them to be in. And I posted a couple of pictures of those areas the other day, like, you know, with a challenge.
I think I saw those.
Yeah, with a challenge, like research this. It's like you can barely get to it, you know. But yeah, it's not far from there. And yeah, I just think that you have to be like you said, I mean, people go camping all the time. I mean, hell, people hike the entire Appalachian Trail from Georgia to Maine and don't have an encounter, you know? So, yeah, it's just the area. And sometimes, yeah, I mean, you could get what I would say is unlucky and rocks start coming in or yells, screams, wood knocks, you know, you're just there to have fun, you know?
Yeah. Well, in my camper, well, where we're going to be at tomorrow, well, according to what I had contact with, they found the camp spot, but they said there's people in the area. So I arranged for them to meet me in a particular location so I could take them to another spot that's not far from there. However, that general area, that's normally where I camp at. That's my main camp spot. Because right across from the camp, just on the other side of the forest road, is where the encounter happened, the 2014 encounter. Then there's another camp spot right next to that one. It's a little smaller. I was camping there by myself just a year later after we had our sighting encounter. Well, that's over there in the same general area, just a little further up. I've had something very large, heavy, and bipedal walk away from me inside the tree line because I spooked it with my spotlight. Because I had a deer run off before on the one side, and then when I shined the spotlight over to the other side, that's when I heard large, heavy steps started to walk away. Now, the thing is, in that particular camp spot, you know, when I've had people out there before on camping expeditions and everything, yeah, we'll hike and explore during the day. But I've always told people, I said, just hang around here and relax and enjoy yourself at night. We shoot the shit, talk, whatever. But at the same time, I'm trying to tell people, try to listen too, because at nighttime, that's when things start happening. So,
Yep.
Because there's times where everybody's chatting among themselves. We're sitting around the campfire, and I'm in a zone. I'm like, my focus, I'm zoned in on everything around here. Because if anything's going to start happening, I want to know about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's been times where I've literally had to tell everybody, shut up.
Yeah.
I hate doing that to people, but it's like,
Yeah.
they're not hearing it. I am. So when they stop talking, they start hearing it too. I was like, see, you guys got to listen. It's like talking to a bunch of kids. but it's but yeah, that's where things happen. I was like, there was one time in particular, I'll never forget it. One of the times we camped there, my father camped out with us. Dad had just gone into his tent because he was feeling tired. The rest of us was still sitting around the campfire. Dad wasn't even in there 10 minutes because what brought him out of the tent was what happened across in the woods over there. It sounded like somebody took a Louisville Slugger and swung it full force on one of those big pine trees in there. And with that big hard knock, I mean, it was hard and it was loud. Because, those big fat giant pine trees that are out in the woods out there, they give off a bassy sound when they get hit. And so when that happened, Dad scrambled out of his tent. And as soon as he stepped out, he's like, I heard that. And I'm standing up, kind of starting to laugh, and I'm pointing. I said, I told you. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that's what I tell you. Just sit around camp. If anything's going to come around, it's going to come. If they get curious enough, they'll come around. So
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey,
Just to throw it out there real quick, there was a question on here. I didn't get to it yet. Let me back up a little bit. This is from Raptor Crazy on YouTube. Here's this question right here. So I have a question for all three of you. What projects are you guys involved with as far as research? Pat, I'll go ahead and start with you if you want to share anything.
Just one and one only. Sasquatch can only be properly observed from the air. That's what I do. That's what I'll be doing this winter. It's far superior to marching around in their territory. And yeah, that's the project.
All right. And all right, what about you, Wayne?
My group, Manimal, we have been in talks with I can't talk a lot about it, with a group up in New York. We have a project in place. We've laid out the ground rules and everything. It's kind of dead in the water right now. We haven't spoken in a few weeks. We're both stepped back for a little bit, but there is something that we're working on. We're collaborating with a group up in New York. Again, I'm sorry I can't give a whole lot of the details. One reason because it's brand new, and I don't have a lot of the details. But yeah, there is something that we're working on.
Okay. Very cool. Now there's projects like one in particular I can't really make mention of. It's not really research related anyway. Pat's familiar with it. I've made mention to it with Pat before. Oh, by the way, all right, this is probably going to give it away to everybody anyway, but that film director, he's going to be there this weekend. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So anyway, as far as projects, I've had projects in the past. I mean, I don't have projects I really put publicly. But it just I just have my own consistent form of research. Now this time of year, it's hard for me to get out there. You know, but I do a lot of boots on the ground research. I'm out there every chance I get. So, but as far as like I said, as far as research projects, it's nothing really in the works right now. Things for the future, but nothing at the current moment. That's all I could say about that. So, um, Pat Lupe Mendoza is asking, "Are you an Army Ranger?" Oh, he's muted right now, so I'm sure he can still hear us. He's, I guess, because of the shirt he's wearing. He's wearing a Ranger shirt. So, but Lupe, to answer your question for him, I don't think he is. That's just a shirt he's wearing. So, yeah. Raptor Crazy. Yeah, at nighttime, all the raccoons and opossums come out, but make all kinds of noises. Everybody thinks it's that, but it's not. Yeah. Yeah. I've had people around my camp, and one thing we have in the woods out there a lot, we have barred owls, and barred owls are notorious for sounding off. A lot of times you'll hear them in the distance, but there's been some occasions where you'll hear them really loud and clear right there at camp. Now, some people I know we spoke about different animal tones and vocals in the past, but barred owls, they make several different tones, just like coyotes and other animals. But barred owls, they will give off this god awful scream with it's hard to describe. But I've heard it numerous times. But I've had other people sitting at my camp, and we'll hear it right behind our camp in the woods behind us. And I've had people jump up "Did you hear that?" I was like, "Yeah, it's an owl." But it's just I know the sounds of the animals out there. That's one thing I do. I mean, and if I hear sounds, if I get them on my recordings, and if it's something I'm not quite familiar with, I'll I'll compare it to what I could think it is, and I'll compare it to other animals to where I can pinpoint it. Uh, Anybody could do that. I mean, there's animal sounds and vocals. There's several different tones of different variety of animals. You could go on YouTube and compare your sounds to different animals. Um,
Right. It's
but
easy to do. You're right.
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Now I've done that with a couple things I've picked up on my audios in the past, and the one scream I do have on my audio, which is uploaded on my SoundCloud, the closest animal I could pinpoint it to is a fox, which it very well may be a fox, but it was close to it. But something about it, it didn't quite to me. It didn't quite match up completely.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to rule out a fox. It very well may have been a fox because there is fox. I've had foxes bark at me, even though I didn't see them. I've had foxes bark at me right inside the tree line behind my camp when I camp by myself,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's cool because I mean, my father's property. When Dad used to have the property, we had foxes all over that property, and you could hear them bark and screech and everything else. But yeah, to hear one bark at you real close is kind of cool. So, but and talk about. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was gonna.
Yeah. Foxes are they're very elusive, and they make weird sounds, man.
Yeah.
Really weird sounds. And so, sorry, I had to step away for a minute, Mendoza. Yeah, I'm not an Army Ranger. I'm not even former military, but I am an armed American patriot. So, I could be someday. But yeah, my buddy Ernie, my buddy Ernie sent me somebody had filmed two lynx cats kind of howling at each other,
Oh yeah.
barking and howling. And man, those were weird noises.
They're
And
very wild sounding, aren't they?
yeah, and of course, I don't. There are no lynx cats here in Georgia. I think he kind of sent it to me as, hey, things can sound weird in the woods because
Mhm.
he and I heard a scream one night, and he's not convinced at all that it was a Sasquatch. I pretty much am. Because it doesn't match up to any known animal in our state, our area. But it was interesting, man. And the guy that filmed it was like, he was real close. Like he was in his car. They were in the middle of a dirt road, and they were just doing their thing. So he got real good visual and audio of it from, I don't know, 25 feet away, And man, those things were making weird noises. And if you didn't know what that was, dude, you would start thinking, man, that's real squatchy sounding, And just like the barred owls, they can sound, those things sound like monkeys sometimes.
Right.
Like they have this weird monkey call they do. Sounds just like a monkey. So
do we have those in this area, Pat? Like North Georgia, South Tennessee, the barred owls?
I think so. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar with those.
I know Daniel does. Daniel's very familiar with them in his area. But yeah,
there's a lot of them up here.
And see, that's the thing is that up here there's not a lot of them. But yes, I mean they are around, but they don't seem to be around as much as like in Daniel's area, about 500 miles to the north of us.
Now that's barred with a D, right? Not barn owl.
Right. Yeah.
Barred, and it's Barred, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I was just looking at now as far as barn, BARN, according to what I just looked up, I meant to put barred owl, but barn owl popped up first. It seems like they're very common down there in Georgia. Now, as far as the barred owl occurs all year throughout the eastern United States and the northwestern states. In the southwestern state, it is fairly common. In Georgia, it is common. In the coastal plain, it's fairly common throughout the rest of the state. These species are not listed as threatened or endangered in the southeast. So yeah, they are down there. They are apparently, from what I understand, they are pretty common throughout the East Coast. So
yeah, it's just dude, because the what I'll describe as the chimp chatter I heard one day out there was, it was during the day, and it sounded like chimp chatter, and I knew looking back at it that it could have been a barred owl, but it was during the day. And as far as I mean, owls are typically nocturnal, not exclusively, but I just thought it was funny. It was, 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so, like I'm hearing this chimp chatter.
Oh, wow.
And of course it was the same night that later on that night I had wood knocks and some other weird stuff happened. I found a bed down area. Like it was just all these different things, and the chimp chatter was a part of it. So, so I don't know that there'd be a barred owl doing that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, this is interesting what Ninja Dave said. Because I had something walk up on me to get a closer look right when a airplane was passing overhead. There's definitely some kind of intelligence. I looked for it but never saw it.
Weird.
Yeah, that is interesting. And Patrick said, Ninja, that is a tactic. I use the noise of the wind when stalking. Well, this is kind of slightly off what you're talking about. It kind of brings me up to another thing I've written down here. I know the answer to this. I know my opinion and thoughts on this, but let me ask you guys. When it comes to audio, and I've known several people on audio recordings when they gather their audio from being out in the woods, and they've heard what they describe as bipedal walking. Now, some of these people have shared these audios with me, and it is clearly bipedal walking. There's no denying that you can hear something walking on 2 feet. Now, here's the question: would you guys declare it Bigfoot because you hear bipedal walking on your audio recorder? So,
Well, I don't. First of all, I don't record.
Okay,
I
but
mean, I would. I might
yeah.
work, but I wouldn't. I don't think I would record something near my campsite walking around.
Well, not particularly near your campsite. I know for a fact these particular, like, I can think of two particular people that have done this. They don't put them around campsites. They go out in the woods and where there's been other activity and where they found evidence.
Right.
And now they'll leave their audio recorders in various places and they'll hide them pretty good. Now I've listened to both of their recordings in the past, and one fairly recent. And in the particular area, this guy shared his audio with me. So, and I'm listening to it, and yeah, it's very obvious that there is bipedal walking on the camera. So I am thinking, okay, something bipedal walked by there, and supposedly it wasn't the person who left the recorder there. It was sometime after, because if anybody sets their audio recorders like I do, when I set my audio recorder for record, I look at the time. Okay, it's 9 p.m. and I even state the date as I push record. I'm stating the date and setting the time,
Yeah.
and then when I go back to listen through it, 3 hours in, okay, there's what, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's midnight. Okay, I got
Yeah.
this at midnight. So that's how I timestamp. So you weren't around that area at that particular time. But my thing is, what if another person was walking through that area? You know, that's just something I would throw out there that we would have to consider that we can't rule out. I mean, would that make sense to you guys?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. It all depends on where it is you left it and what is the likelihood that another individual is going to be there at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, walking around. You
Right.
know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just, well, here's the thing. Altogether, it's inconclusive. Because,
Yeah.
why? Because it's audio.
Yeah.
And audio doesn't impress anybody except maybe your friends, right?
Yeah.
We've had the Sierra sounds have been around since the 70s, and that is some impressive audio.
Yes, it is.
So
Yes,
number one, you're probably not going to get as good as that or better if you're trying to capture audio. That's why I don't understand why people are even interested in capturing audio.
Yeah.
And number two, in the modern world, see, the Sierra sounds can be dated. Like, they can be technically dated to the 70s. So they're officially tied to 70s technology.
Right.
In 2020, anybody that goes, "Oh, look at this audio," boom, here it is. Well, it's 2020, man. Like, pretty easy to hoax that. Not so easy in the 70s,
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's why audio means nothing to me, because number one, you're probably not going to get anything better than the Sierra sounds, and number two, the Sierra sounds are time stamped in a decade of where technology is known, as opposed to today, where technology is known and could be easily hoaxed.
Yeah.
I mean, I could put something together in 20 minutes, to blow your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to audio, like what little audio I do have, and anybody could go check it out. I have it on SoundCloud, and you don't have to download the SoundCloud app to listen to the audios on there. But if you look up mine's under my name. It's Daniel Benoit, Benoit, with a number 7 afterwards, and then you can see the different categories I have audio under, and I have them titled for what they are. There's some of them you got to listen very carefully. I definitely wear earbuds in some of them because there's some howls that are picked up in there. Some of them are long, extended.
Yeah.
That I would title as unknown. I'm not sure exactly what it could have been. It could have been a coyote. It just some howls where I just wasn't able to identify, and I'm not afraid to admit that I can't identify some things. However, I got coyotes under there. I got a pack of coyotes down and off. I got owls on there, and so forth. So, So when I do pick up wildlife audio, vocals, I will definitely upload them, because there's people that don't get out in the woods that might hear some things like, what in the world is that? Like the story I was telling you about people hearing that scream from the bar dial. I knew exactly what it was, but they didn't, because to them it was a kind of a kind of a chilling kind of scream. I was like, whoa, because it will catch you off guard if you're not expecting it. It is something that it's not common, but you know, so yeah,
Yeah, so are yotes, dude.
oh yeah, I've heard them tone in all kinds of weird sounds.
I've heard coyotes that were, I mean, they were borderline hyena noises. You know,
Oh, the way they start yipping and howling at the same time. Yeah.
it almost sounds like they're laughing at you. I mean, it's crazy. Those
Yep.
things, their their vocalizations are like way diverse. Like they have
Yeah.
1,000 different kind of like diverse vocalizations, and man, some of them start, like I said, man. It's like, man, these things sound like hyenas tonight, and they did,
Oh yeah.
But I knew
So
they
you've
were coyotes.
you've heard coyotes sound like they're laughing before?
Yeah, like like I said, I would describe it as borderline hyena sounds. So it wasn't a
Mhm.
full blown hyena sound, but it was getting there. Like it was starting to sound that way.
Right.
Yeah, they have real strange vocalizations. So yeah, I mean, if you're somebody interested in the Bigfoot world, you go out in the woods for the first time, you start hearing coyotes for the first time. You're really not. It could easily be a situation where you don't even know what you're hearing. That makes sense. Just like the barred owls or the foxes, which do make weird screams sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And foxes have that little bit bigger chamber of a canine, bigger lung.
Well, especially keep in mind when they bark, they have that raspy bark. It's not like your
Yeah,
average canine sound. But it's more of a rasp. Like, I'm not gonna try to mimic it because I'll probably end up coughing or choking. So,
yeah. It's the like first time Bigfooters or whatever, or people interested in it that want to go out in the woods, which is great. I love that. In a way, I love that the Bigfoot phenomenon gets people interested in going out in the woods that maybe otherwise wouldn't have. You know,
right.
Yeah.
so it's kind of it's a double-edged sword in a way. But I don't want them going out there and recording stuff on their cell phone, thinking they're hearing Bigfoot.
Right.
It online, and it's we're all sitting here going, man, those are freaking coyotes, dude. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
Yep.
because we've been around them.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Um, what was I gonna say? There was something I was gonna bring up real quick, but I'll come back to it in a little bit. I'll think of it here shortly. Yeah, everybody on the chat, you guys were actually helping out here a lot here, carrying on a conversation for us to bring things up.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. Let's move on to something here.
Let's.
Pat, I know something that you wanted to talk about, and it was under a post that got posted under the ECBRO Facebook group. It's actually what I posted. Was it something I posted and shit? Yeah.
You posted.
Yeah, because I shared it. I thought it would be, I shared it because I thought it would be, it would make for a great discussion, and which we're going to turn it into one. So it was regarding, it was the one regarding the height of Sasquatch. Is that correct?
Yep.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'll let you take it away. I'll let you start it off. So, what's your take on how big Sasquatch could get? That's what I guess we're going to talk about. So.
Yeah, so I would bring up the picture, but I actually don't have it, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It's in relation to the different sizes of Sasquatch. And so in the picture, it was like it went from, 8 foot up to 14 feet, 15 feet. And I've heard people say that before. It's not like I've heard people say, I heard somebody say they saw a 15-footer.
Mhm.
Like even Steve Coles said that once, and I was kind of like shocked. He said that.
Really, Steve Coles.
Yeah, like Steve Coles said that once. And I immediately challenged him in chat. I was like, "There's no way." And here's the thing: there's no way. At least if you're talking about undiscovered hominid of some type, some sort of primate, or close cousin, that is of this earth. There's no possible way they could get that big. It defies the laws of physics. So a 15-foot tall Sasquatch can't exist without some other mechanism being involved that, like, obviously we would not understand, right? So I don't know, some kind of Wolverine skeleton or something, a cyborg, if you will. There's supernatural, magic spell, whatever it is. There would have to be something going on there because a hominid shaped primate like us simply cannot get that big. And there's a couple of reasons why. I'll start pulling up some examples for you, Daniel, here.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'll pull up is this. So that's a typical 2-story home.
Yep.
About your average size two-story home. These top story windows right here they're 15 feet tall. They're 15 feet off the ground.
To the bottom of the window?
I would say probably a little higher than the bottom of the window. I would have to hold on. Let me get up in here. I would say probably more like up in the halfway through the bottom frame of the window. So in other words, picture a Sasquatch head being able to look straight into that window. And so, yeah, that's 15 feet tall. That's how, and so you picture in your mind a Sasquatch standing in front of this house, looking into that window, and that's how big they would be. And of course, that makes the house look like a kid's playhouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty absurd. that visualization is just absurd.
Well, yeah, because here's another thing to keep in mind. All right, look at this house right here. You step up onto the front step there, the platform right there where the front door is. Now, the standard door entry, a standard door for any house is from the bottom up is 6 foot in height. So we got a 6 foot mark right there at the top of that door. So.
Oh, that'd be it'd be more than 6 foot, dude, for the door entry.
Yeah, well, once you step up, because you got your sidewalk, then you got your step. You got to
say from the ground. Yeah.
Yeah. So from the ground, from the total height of the door is that's exactly 6 foot.
Oh yeah, no, I
so
know.
Yeah,
these windows are 15 feet easily in the air because I've worked on houses, and if I were to be working on that window right there, that top story window, I'd use a 16-foot ladder, a 15-foot extension ladder, which would be kicked out at an angle, so that would shave off about 1.5 feet. So it probably almost 15 feet to the bottom of the windowsill.
Yeah, Jim Jerkins even mentioned it, but here is, I don't know if you can see it on there, but there's your standard door size. You guys probably can. 6 feet 8 inches is the total height of the door. So, and
so 15 feet on this house is more like the middle of the top story window. That's about 15 feet.
Right.
Yeah. So there you go. Picture a 15-foot Sasquatch standing in front of that window, and how big it would have to be. And you're already looking at the absurd. I mean, it's just, there's just no way visually, there's no way that's going on,
Yeah.
But we already know it's not going on because we have the laws of physics. And that's the other thing I'm going to get to here. If I can pull it up real quick, it's called square cube law, which is if you take something, it's the reason why you don't find mice the size of a pit bull, right? Because once you start taking something biological, the biomechanics can only get so big. So as the size increases, so must the surface area and the volume. So basically, a 15-foot Sasquatch would have to have 7-foot wide shoulders, and of course, with gravity and blood flow and heart, the size of the heart, oxygen, size of the lungs, it wouldn't even be able to walk. I mean, it wouldn't, much less be graceful and like be graceful and avoid humans. It wouldn't be able to get off the ground, dude. It wouldn't be able to stand up in Earth's gravity.
Well,
no matter how long it was.
When it comes to when people describe, I say, well, with their sightings, you like to believe people are pretty accurate. You want to believe that people are pretty accurate.
They're just what they're seeing.
Yeah, and I believe it all has to do with their perception of vision on the description of what they're seeing. Everybody has a different perception. Well, meanwhile, I might see a squat. Oh man, he was 8 feet tall. Meanwhile, he was probably only 6 feet tall. He just looked big.
Yeah.
So, and here's another thing people got to understand. And I like how we're gotten into this discussion, because if we think about this scientifically and logically, anything that's, I would say, 15 feet, anything claimed to be 15 feet or larger, it would no longer be elusive. Seriously.
Exactly. Much less
it would no longer be.
Yeah.
It would no longer be elusive, and it wouldn't be allowed to be elusive. It would be so big, who would miss it? The other thing is too, you got to think about their diet. Their protein
how much
intake.
Protein.
That's exactly right. Protein intake is very, necessary for anything of any large predator to take. Think about a tiger. We know how big tigers get. They require, so much protein intake, so many calories a day. So, think about, man, a 20, 30 foot, anything. Let's just say, let's entertain the thought if Bigfoot was that big. Let's just entertain the thought. And I'm not saying he is. Let's just say, let's entertain that thought. He would have to eat how many deer a day? And eat up a lot of vegetation. A lot of meat. We'd be losing our deer population left and right, and not to mention probably other critters,
But it doesn't even matter. What I'm saying is that they physically cannot get that big. It doesn't matter if they were that big or what would they eat. None of that matters. They would not be able to stand up if they were that big. So the tallest man ever known in human history was Robert. I forget his last name.
Ludlow, Robert
Wadlow.
Wadlow, something like that.
Yeah, and he was 8'11". 8'11". So let's say 9 feet tall.
He could barely move.
He could barely move. He died at the age of 22. So yeah, man. And when you see pictures of him, he doesn't look 22 years old. But man, he was freaking 9 feet tall. That's for a human. So you say a 6 foot man, 9 feet is only 3 feet more. When you're talking about 15-foot Sasquatch, most people say they're about 8 feet tall, roughly. You're talking about double that size. Like, it's ridiculous. It just can't. It's not physically possible at all. If there's one that's 15 feet tall, there's something else going on. You just proved they're not a primate. You proved it. If you can prove there's one that's 15 feet tall because you have a measuring stick and they're standing next to it or a dead body or whatever, I mean, you just prove that there's something else going on with Sasquatch that is way beyond our physical understandings, you know?
Right.
And here's the other thing, and I'll kind of go off this. So with the square cube law requires that if a species is going to get exponentially bigger like that, they have to change their shape. So the shape of the shape has to start changing dramatically, you know? And so we have an example of a 15-foot tall bipedal animal that walked this planet. And this is what it looks like. This is what that animal looks like. There's that's what a 15-foot tall bipedal animal looks like. It of course looks nothing like a Sasquatch, looks nothing like a person. I don't recall any accounts where people are seeing Tyrannosaurus Rex in the woods, but that's the design it takes to walk on two legs and be 15 feet tall. Period. End of story. It's just not a thing, you know. It's 15 feet tall. Sasquatch isn't a thing. There are no 30-foot giants. We hear that a lot too. You know, it's not a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Patrick Vaughn said, it adds fear adds the size, which to me that kind of makes some sense.
Yeah,
absolutely.
People,
I agree with that.
People misinterpret what they're seeing because they're being like traumatized in the moment, you know.
Right.
And I bet I could put you in front of an 8-foot tall Sasquatch replica because their shoulders are real big. They're almost 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't be able to guess the height of it. You might say 8 feet because you know that's roughly what they are. But if I took anybody off the street and threw them in front of an 8-foot replica, I bet they couldn't guess the height. I bet you get 9 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, you know?
Yeah.
And that's with them standing to it, not being afraid and just judging it for what it is, you know? So yeah.
Hey guys, it's that time for me.
All right, buddy.
I've enjoyed it, guys. Good conversation tonight, and everybody out there, appreciate y'all hanging out, giving me the opportunity to hang out, and we'll catch y'all later.
All right, Wayne.
All right. Hey, thank you, Wayne. Have a good one.
All right, buddy. See you guys
later.
Yeah. What's his name? Barry said even 12 feet is a foot taller than me standing on my own shoulders.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ridiculous proportion. You know.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, they would have to have 7-foot wide shoulders. I mean, it would be unmistakable. Like, I mean, it would just be like nothing we've ever seen on the earth.
Right.
It would have to be like at that point. I'm saying, okay, yep, these things are supernatural or they're cyborgs or something like, you know. Because if they were walking around that big, they are definitely not an undiscovered hominid. Because again, like I showed you the picture, you know, a T-Rex, that thing was 15 feet tall, you know, and it was a monster. It walked on 2 legs, but it was 15 feet tall. That's what it takes. You know, It's not our shape. Our shape can never happen at that height.
Yeah, Dinobot added this that he goes on to say, he said, now I don't think it's real, but it's a cool idea. So
yeah, I mean, you know, it's entertaining. It's entertaining to think there could be giants even bigger than Sasquatch running around in the woods, right? It's all just like it all just tickles the imagination.
Right.
You know? But it doesn't do anybody good. Like it's one of the things that need to be shut down. Like, no, they're not 15 feet tall. Here's why. It's pretty simple. It defies the laws of physics. You know, like move on. Let's move on. You know.
Right. Absolutely. Patrick Vaughn, yeah, I timed him out.
Who?
Yeah. He's troll alert. There was somebody posting some stupid stuff on there.
Okay.
So yeah.
I can't even buy 12 feet. I'm sorry. I do not think they're 12 feet tall either. Again, that kind of muscle mass that comes along with trying to carry that kind of frame and the size of the heart. And most people say they're 8 feet. So that's even right there, 8 to 12 is such a leap in size, which would have to be an exponentially bigger frame. That I say there's no way they're 12 feet. I say they max at 10. They would have to max at 10.
Now, if we were to go back and look according to biblical records of giants,
right?
According to David and Goliath, according to the Bible, Goliath was only about 9 feet tall, but he was still considered a giant. Now, there's no record or information if they have gotten any taller than that. I mean, because the Bible speaks of the giants, the land of the giants, and so forth. And then we got, Goliath. Now, if we jump out of the Bible and look back in our Pleistocene and history and back during when Gigantopithecus was known to roam the earth, we have different records, different articles suggesting that he was 10 to 12 feet. And there was one I read one time up to 14 feet.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we discussed this last week. It's and it's all speculation because we only have one good fossil to go, and that's the lower jaw they found.
Right, and that's what gets me. I've questioned myself about that, thinking about that. How in the world could they have any? I don't even know how to even respond to this, but it's that's how mind-boggling it is. Like, how could they determine just from a jawbone? I guess they would figure, well, it would have to fit on a skull this big, and then the skull would have to be, and then they kind of, they pieced it together.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's people with big heads and small bodies, vice versa, but it doesn't mean they're big people, so.
Yeah, but pretty much I don't want to say consensus, but the general thought today is that Gigantopithecus was only about 20% bigger than a gorilla. So they've gone from 12 feet tall, bipedal, to knuckle dragging 20% bigger than a gorilla.
Right.
And we'll never know. We'll unless we find a complete, fossil or a more complete fossil where they can actually piece things together confidently, let's say, so I'm just going to kind of lean in the direction that, they probably weren't 12 feet tall. They were probably were roughly 20% bigger than a gorilla. I think that's fair. Again, man, we're dealing with the laws of physics here.
Yeah. Yeah, Dinobot said, well, according to the BFRO, the average size for an adult Sasquatch is 7 feet tall, 11 inches. Now, I'm assuming they are basing that off of what they believe Patty to be. That sounds about around what they estimated Patty to be, based off of what the examination and the analysis they've done based off the video footage. Plus the tracks, they go based off the tracks that they found on that site. So
I think he's thought to be a little bit shorter than that.
Yeah.
More around 7'3" or 7'4".
Yeah, I think that's what it was. That's
And so with this, BFRO says average size is 7'11". Well, that's 1 inch shy of what? 8 feet, right?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, dude. I mean, if you go listen to account after account after account, most people say it was about 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Well, I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you know otherwise, I do believe the BFRO's base knowledge comes from the founder of the BFRO, Mister Know-It-All himself, Matt Moneymaker.
Maybe so, but all I'm saying is to put on your website 7'11" when the vast majority of people who describe Bigfoot describe it as 8 feet tall.
Yeah,
that's not a coincidence.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So now Patrick claims to have found a 22.5-inch track, which I've heard of other people finding large tracks. Now I have found large tracks, but I'm talking about the biggest I believe I found was around 19 inches, but it wasn't a big, huge, wide track. I mean, it was kind of narrow. I mean, I got pictures of those things too. But most of my average tracks, a majority of my tracks, if you look at my collection and measure them, they're 13 inches to 16 inches. 13 to 16 inches is mainly what I find. It's very rare if I find anything bigger than that. So,
well,
maybe they're young squatches. I don't know,
I mean, they're called Bigfoot for a reason, right?
Yeah. My shoe size, I wear a size 11 in shoes. And sometimes, depending on the boot I wear, if I wear a boot, I got to go up to a size 12, But if you measure my foot by itself, it's, I think I'm a 6-foot dude with only a size 11 shoe. So,
Well, yeah. And here's the thing. I'm 5'6", and I wear a 10.5 shoe.
Right.
So there you go. Like I'm a smaller guy, but I wear the shoe of a 6-foot man. That's how big my feet are. So
right.
You could never take my track. If you took my track, you might estimate me at 6 feet tall. I'm not.
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean, they probably ate bamboo. We don't know that exactly. Well, maybe we do from some sequencing of their teeth, but
well,
yeah, they had the jaw capacity to be herbivores, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because according to articles and what information is put out there, based off of where they found the remains in South Asia and Indonesia and so forth, they basically their remains have been found in areas such as consisting of a lot of vegetation, tropical vegetation, exotic kind of vegetation.
Yeah.
So,
and they probably did. Probably ate bamboo. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we know that our known primates do. I mean, gorillas, I watched videos, watching them peel and eat bark and, and other bits of grass shoot, bamboo type stuff, So, yeah. Jim Jerkin said he's 6'2", size 12 shoe. So.
Right. But there's 6'2". There are people out there who are 6'2" or even 6'4" that wear a 10.5 shoe. So it's not that consistent with
right.
Feet.
Yeah. I'm seeing it on my phone. It hasn't popped up on our screen yet, but Dinobot mentioned. He said, and when it comes to large apes, the largest known modern ape was a gorilla named Phil, who was 800 pounds and 6 feet tall. So, now it just popped up. I'll have to show it now.
That's big.
But, yeah, that is pretty big. 800-pound gorilla. I mean, they're big. They're full of muscle anyway. And, they're going to weigh a gorilla, even a chimpanzee. They're going to be very heavy because when it comes to body fat, they're opposites of human. They basically are almost a 90 to a 95% muscle mass compared to fat. That's why a chimpanzee, you drop them in a river, they're not going to swim. because they'll sink like a rock. There's very, very few primates that are able to swim. There is some smaller primates that will actually go underneath the water and come back up. So, um, so yeah, I think when it comes to primates, that's something not too many people realize because they are full of muscle mass. They have very little body fat. Makes them a very strong being. Um, and Patrick goes on to say, I actually measured. Let me pop it up so I can read it. I actually measured the limb one bumped his head on. It was 96 inches off the ground. Wow. Pretty cool. And let's see. What else are we missing here? Because I got stuff that doesn't always pop up right away. Oh, and Jim Jerkin said he also weighs 290 pounds. That's 6 feet. 6'2", size 12 shoe, and 290 pounds. Now he weighs a little bit more than me. I'm 6 foot. I'm around 260, 265. So, Barry said, I've always wondered how Sasquatch could swim with that kind of muscle. Well, that's if we're, that's where I like to throw in the non-human primate side of things, where I compare. As much as I like to believe, I can't say because we don't know. But that's my conclusion is I believe they are some form of unknown or unclassified primate of some sort, preferably of their own kind. But if we are going to compare them to the non-human primates like chimpanzees and gorillas, there's a lot of different factors. Like I was just talking about the muscle mass. I like to believe that Sasquatch has more of a muscle mass than they do body fat. Then again, you would think they would have to have some kind of body fat to survive the cold temperatures. As we're starting to slowly enter into here. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Then again, if they're that intelligent, then perhaps they have shelter to go into somewhere. There's one particular area I have not been to it, but I spoke to people that know where it is. Mountain bike riders that ride on these mountain trails. There is a cave in one particular area that I was told, if it's big enough to where you can walk into it. If you go into it, it actually holds a lot of heat. There's a heat source in there. So that got me thinking, what if there's other, cave structures that we don't know about that maybe Sasquatch might use because they do produce heat during the cold weather. That's something to possibly think about. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, cave structures are unique to certain areas.
Right.
And people are really good at finding caves.
Yeah.
So we kind of know where the caves are.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah. What about the other thought? I made mention of this one time. Now, in a lot of different ways, I compare Sasquatch to bears for different various reasons. And one in particular, I thought about this. Could Bigfoot dig out a den? Because there is bears. I don't know how common they do this, but bears will make their own dens on the side of embankments or wherever they may find it accessible to do this. But there is actually dig outs where a bear will dig out an area and then where they can go inside of it. I'm wondering if Bigfoot would do something similar to that, to make their own dens, something where they could crawl into, where it might be dug out enough. I don't know. I've thought of those kind of things too. I believe that could be a possibility, but we don't know how they live,
Yeah, we don't.
So,
I mean, I know, here in North Georgia, the black bears in North Georgia, they do not hibernate. There's no hibernation down here.
Mm-hmm.
the winters are not long enough or brutal enough for them to hibernate. So they probably wouldn't even know how to hibernate. So if you're talking about dens or caves, compared to a Bigfoot wouldn't need to do that.
Right.
They would just, they just stay on the move, and they're large, and they're going to generate a lot of internal body heat because of their size. Something like that. They seem to kind of just be around all year long. And again, they can't. There's no retreat where I'm at. There's no retreat to the south.
Right.
Without going straight through the middle of 8 million people.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's an impossible barrier for them to cross. There's no natural pathway.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I meant to throw this out there earlier. I try to pop this up every now and then.
Yeah.
So, and while I'm popping things up there, just a reminder for everybody: tomorrow, October 17th, which is tomorrow, we're gathering together for our Bigfoot outdoor seminar, talk around the campfire, right here in Virginia. So we already have 2 people out there right now. Tomorrow, the rest of us will be gathering tomorrow. I'll be headed out in the morning, so it's exciting. From what I was told, there's other campers out there. Oh, and there is a large group of people camping in one spot. It's a Trump rally, I was told. They got got Trump stuff out everywhere over there, out in the woods. So,
all right.
So that's interesting. So, all right, let me go back to the chat here. Between caves and old abandoned houses and barns, there's plenty of shelter. I've heard of people saying that they, or people believe that they use abandoned houses and barns. Do you think that's possible?
We'd find them. I mean, that can't be a common thing. We'd find them in there,
Well, think of
homeless people or something, man. I mean,
well, think about this, because I know, like here in Virginia, some of the places I ride into, I mean, there's I've seen roads where there's old houses, like old shacks, just like grown over, just off the side of the road, for example. But think of it, and then you see these old farmlands and these old barns. Sometimes there's old, rundown, aged barns that are not being used anymore, but they're still on people's property. You know, if this is my opinion on it, if they were to be used as shelter, I definitely believe it would definitely be temporary. Because my take on that is, if the Squatches are that intelligent, they would have to understand or be familiar with the traffic that comes around there. Like, as far as how often is that area visited by the landowners? I mean, there's people that come around that area, or is that just totally ignored altogether? So I would think maybe if they're passing through an area and they want somewhere to stay, I could kind of see that,
every now
again,
and then, I mean, that Daniel,
yeah,
that cannot be their our
primary.
yes,
Yeah.
our structures cannot be their primary source of protection.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, they're able. I mean, God, I wish we had Meldrum with us right now. He could probably answer this the best.
Yeah.
Or some other wildlife biologist who understands. I mean, bears do it, but I mean, then again, bears do hibernate in the extreme northern regions, but they don't hibernate here.
Now, oh yeah. Now right here, this is a very good possibility right here too. A lot of animals are known for this. Horses, even deer. Deer change their coat. A lot of people don't realize it, but they, because as they adapt to the cold weather, anything that stays outside, because a lot of different animals do this, which We don't know. We don't know if a Squatch does this, but I believe that could be a possibility. Depends on how they are with their adaptation to the season change and the weathers.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No,
so
dogs like
yeah,
my Chihuahuas develop different coats, summer for winter.
right,
They have a summer
absolutely.
coat. They have a winter coat. It's hard to notice because they're short haired, but they shed more in the summer. You know,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So
Now
uh,
you had something on there. I just saw it before you took it off.
I
Was
can
that
pull
something
it back.
you wanted me to screen share?
Yeah, it's just it's Robert Wadlow, who is the tallest man,
Oh,
the tallest human being known to man. Uh, and it's incredibly. I mean, he is. Look at
oh
that.
yeah. Wow.
He makes those other adults look like 5-year-olds, like just
Now
insane.
wait. Okay. What's his height? Do you know his height in this?
8'11".
8'11". Now
Like,
there's one guy that's living today that's a tall guy. He's an Asian guy. Are you familiar who I might be talking about? I don't know his
oh,
name.
yeah, yeah, I think he's like 8'4".
Oh, okay. He's up there though, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the tallest human being known to man was
Hmm.
this guy Robert Wadlow, and of course it's a biological defect that where most of us when we become young adults, the pituitary gland it interacts with your when your sexual glands start to develop, and it tells you to stop growing.
Yeah.
And that's how it works for all of us. But sometimes people have a defect where that process doesn't happen, and
Right.
pituitary just keeps growth hormone, and that's how this what they call gigantism happens.
Hmm.
So it's actually an anomaly. So human beings don't actually naturally grow this big.
Yeah.
It's a defect in their system that is an anomaly that allows them. And this guy could barely walk. You see him holding a cane.
I was just about to make that point because
Yeah,
this is not the first tall person I've heard that's had. Most tall people have problem with their knees when they get tall and so big. Yeah, they have joint issues.
yeah.
So
This
so
guy, he died. He doesn't look it in this picture, but he's very young.
oh
He
yeah,
Yeah, he died at the age of 22 from a simple infection. So things become very problematic. And this is 9 feet, dude. He's only 3 feet taller than a 6 foot man, you
he
know,
only looks about maybe 30 years old, if that.
but he's not. And like I said, he died at the age of 22.
Oh, 22.
Yeah,
Wow.
22. So he was
Oh,
younger than 22 years old, or he was 22 when this picture was taken at the very most. And he died from a simple infection, which
now
is my whole point. Is that when you take an 8 foot tall Sasquatch and you double their height, number one, they're not going to be able to stand up. I don't care how much muscle they have; they just won't be able to stand up. Number two, even if they could, they would just die, and they
yeah.
wouldn't be able to evade us. I mean, you could walk right up to them. There's nothing they could do. You know?
Well, here's another thing I would consider, and you know, the let's just say the Sasquatch population. All right, they don't know any better when it comes to interbreeding. I mean, we know better. We're not gonna have. We have moral. We have a moral understanding of.
Yeah.
We're not gonna go mate with my mother or my sister. You know, think about those things. We don't know. There's probably a very good possibility with Sasquatches, and I know it probably happens with other wildlife. You know, deer, whatever. But here's what I'm getting at. Think about when they have interbreeding, that there forms other defects and other issues, health, which leads to health problems. I believe that's probably a case with some of these. We don't know, but I believe it's safe to assume, or to insinuate that they probably do have interbreeding. So,
Well, nature has clear boundaries on interbreeding,
yeah,
and that is it screws you up, like you can't do it as a species. And there's examples of that in the human world. Back when, I'll give you two examples, culturally, and so back in the day when we had kingdom ships, they tried to keep the bloodline going, and there would be people would interbreed families for their kingdoms, and they would get leprosy and things like that. So that didn't work out. And then there's other cultures in humanity that this is a weird subject to get into, but they would like cousins, or a very heavy, so maybe not like intermediate family, but just outside of that, there's a cultural thing that happens where it's okay to marry your cousin, let's say,
right.
and what happens is they get real dumb. Like the IQ level just drops, man, and people become stupid. So Bigfoot cannot afford that. They simply couldn't afford a heavy interbreeding. As nature as we understand it, there's no. I don't think they get away with it, because they'd just be wandering around, downtown cities,
Oh yeah.
like doi 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 doi. Like they would just be stupid,
Yeah.
if not physically deformed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's mainly would be in what I would call direct um, interbreeding. But yeah, when you have other sub branches of your family members, like you mentioned cousins, cousin to cousin or whatever. There's long term effects, but when you have more direct, brother sister, you know that they would cause major issues and have more issues. But as far as what you call it, dogs. Anybody who's familiar with breeding dogs, when you got a litter, this is one thing I'm not a dog breeder, but I know enough. I spoke to a lot of dog breeders throughout the years, and it's one thing when you have litter, or when your dogs has a litter, like you have so many puppies or whatever. Even with cats, I've seen the evidence in cats, but dogs too. When you overbreed, people just breed and breed and breed. They don't watch your dogs. They don't care, you know. And you got a litter. You got the brother and sister of the same litter, and when they get old enough and they're still around, they're not separated. They start breeding. It's the same thing. Even with what happens with humans, it's more known in dogs, canines, and I'm sure it's the same thing with other mammals and other species. The brain, there's a lot that happens with the brain, and then there's other physical disorders that occur and develop in the process. Right. So that's a lot of things to keep in mind too. And so I like to believe that Sasquatch, it may not be common. Maybe they find other species from another clan or group. Oh, let's mate with this one. But I almost feel that is very likely that they do interbreed. But then again, people describe how fast and incredible and strong they are, and then their intelligence that would almost eliminate that kind of thing. But then again,
nature has its rules, dude.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one of those things where you could, somebody could easily challenge it with their own imagination and say, well, it's because they're supernatural,
right.
Do what they want. Like, okay, but we don't know that. We have to have a good, solid foundation of a starting point. And you know what? We can actually start ruling things out as we go along,
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was last week I said, Meldrum basically told Dr. Meldrum told me there was like 12 Bigfoot in Georgia, and I'm just like, there's no way. There has to be more. Like it has to be at least 30 of them. Like
Well, now how is that based off of what? Maybe that's based off of
the formula
sighting.
the formula that either he came up with or that he subscribes to, which is I believe 1 to 1,000 bear population.
Well, yeah, you know where they get that from? That comes from Lauren Coleman. Lauren Coleman states that in his book, um, you know, apes, the true story of apes in North America.
Right.
Because I have his book and I read that from beginning to end a long time ago, and I'll never forget that quote. It's actually a very interesting quote, and I keep that in mind. But that's a belief. That's not a actual factual statement.
Correct.
That's a theory. So it's
Theory.
not. It is something good to keep in mind, but to look at the population just from based off of people's sightings and stories, there's like here in Virginia alone, you know, I would consider Georgia, like Virginia, Georgia, the area is so spread out. There's so much spread out, and all these reports in all these various locations. There's no way they're seeing the same one. You know, I don't see that possible.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
and so if I was to go based off of the reports that I gathered, I mean, there's got to be an easily spread of, you know, maybe 50, just based off of reports of like down in Southwest Virginia, Central Virginia. There's been reports on the eastern, out there on the eastern shore, out because there's swamps out there that run down into North Carolina, up along the mountains here. I mean, I've heard several different stories of people hearing and experiencing sightings, and
Yeah.
then over there on the West Virginia line. I mean, the western part of Virginia has got a lot of activity, and people just don't realize it. I mean, I've heard stories from people that didn't even know I was a Bigfoot researcher that came out and told me what they saw one time. I said, what? And yeah, that's like where I go camping at. They don't know that. So I was
Right.
like, I kind of find that little things like that incredible. But I made notes of all these things, and I keep in mind where all these reports are coming from. And some of the reports, they're not all directly to me. Some of them were secondhand reports, that I've learned from others, that they got shared the report, and they told me about it because they know I'm here and they know I cover, a lot of ground. Um, so yeah, I really believe the population is much larger than what a lot of people believe.
Yeah, I definitely disagree. If I'm allowed to say this, I disagree with Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum. But then again,
Oh,
he has no way. He has no way to independently verify whatsoever a Sasquatch population. So in other words, his guess is as good as mine. In my
well,
opinion.
and if he was here with us, and you were to say that to him, he would be so cool. He would,
I know.
I could always picture his response. Mentally
Mhm.
imagine his response, and he would be so cool about that.
Yeah.
And then you guys would definitely be throwing notes back and forth, or like, well, explain yourself, basically, and he would do the same. Um, so yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, he's so laid back and easy to listen to sometimes. Um,
Definitely.
Patrick Vaughn said, "But where would Bama fans come from?" I don't know where that came from. I don't
Yeah,
know if I missed something.
I don't know what I'm not sure like where that comment's coming from, like the context of something we said. I don't know.
Unless he's talking because I don't know Bama.
Oh,
Unless he's talking to Ashley Jacobs from Alabama. I don't know.
no,
So,
yeah, I know. I kind of know what Patrick Vaughn's saying there, actually.
oh, I think
Yeah,
Ashley's responded to him. She said, "Don't go there." Oh,
yeah,
uh,
because we were talking about inbreeding. Is so they're kind of being jokey about it.
okay. Yeah, yeah, Patrick, you got an Alabama resident on here, Ashley Jacobs. So, That's funny though.
I won't go there.
Now Jason Dobbins is talking about the 3-toed and 4-toed tracks they found, and he thinks that has to do with interbreeding. And you know what? I've thought of that
Maybe.
because now the Falk Arkansas monster that was believed to be a 3-toed Bigfoot. Now that's something I always kept in mind. They've always found 3 toes associated with that Bigfoot in the Falk Arkansas monster. So that is a very good possibility. Like I said, when it comes to interbreeding, it's not always obvious, but there's physical defects as well as internal defects, and mental defects. So very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
I think there's a healthy population, man. I really do.
Yeah.
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 There's just so much room, dude. Like the pictures I put up the other day, or a couple of days ago, I was being a little snarky. I shared it around to all the groups. I'm like, research this. There's no trails, no roads, and it is true. People don't go in those areas.
Oh yeah, that's right. Now I remember what you're talking about.
It's so easy. It's so easy. It would just be so easy for a Sasquatch to be there and not have to deal with us. They could do whatever the hell they want in those areas.
Right.
People just don't go there.
Right.
So I can actually put my eyes on remote areas. I can look at them and go, that's a remote area. People don't go there. I mean, there could be 15 of those things out there. No one would ever know it, ever.
Right. June Brantley, actually, that's a good point. That could always be a good possibility. However, I know the Falk Arkansas monster and other alleged tracks found in other locations, both set of feet had 3 toes. 3 toes are not a very common thing to come across, but from what I understand, the Falk Arkansas monster, both feet were 3 toes. So, but then again, somewhere along the line, there's been other 3-toed tracks people believe that could be Sasquatch. Yeah, that's a very good possibility. So, but, well, Pat, we are approaching our 2-hour mark. You think it'd be a good time to go ahead and wrap it up?
Sure, why not?
Yeah, since I'm sure we could go on more because this has been a pretty interesting discussion tonight. However, I do need to try to get some sleep. I got some running around to do in the morning. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about it. So for any of those who might be watching, any of those who will be attending, I don't know if any of them are watching. If you are, I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person. There's been maybe a couple of you guys I know that I have met before. So it's definitely going to be a great time. I'm looking forward to it, and I know they're excited. I'm excited. So, but ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close it up for tonight, and be on the lookout for us next Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And before we jump off here, Patrick, you have anything you want to throw out there?
Not much. If you're a new viewer, you don't know already, come join the Squatch Talk group.
There you go.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
That's about it. I might have more to say this weekend at some point.
Hey, real quick before we jump off here, I meant to ask you earlier. Do you sing?
Not really. I can a little bit, but I certainly don't consider myself a singer.
Okay, but you can play the guitar though, right?
Yeah, I can play guitar. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to ask. I might get you to play something next time. I see the guitar right behind you by the fireplace.
man.
That'd
Yeah,
be cool.
I relocated the podcast to the fireplace.
I noticed that you were a lot closer to the fireplace because before it used to be like way behind you. Behind you. Where were you sitting at before? Up at your
Yeah,
countertop? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's cool. Yeah. Talk about guitars. Chris Allen, who came from Charleston, West Virginia. I know he came up. He had a good 3-4 hour ride up. He's out there tonight, and from what I understand, he brought his guitar. So yeah, I think he'll be playing some tunes for us tomorrow. He anybody who follows Chris Allen on Facebook, he hosts a lot of karaoke. He goes to different clubs and places. He's a karaoke host, so which is pretty cool. And
Yeah.
he's actually had some pretty talented people on, that come up to perform at these different places. So, and just to let everybody know, check out the website. There's a Facebook page for this too, and for the VirginiaBigfootCon.com. The date is June 26th and June 27th for 2021. Make sure you save those dates. Make sure you request them off. You're gonna want to be there. So,
Yeah. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be huge.
yeah, huge. So, yep. And the ECBR research team. Whoop whoop. So, so ladies and gentlemen, until next Friday night, thank you guys again for coming on, and keep it squatchy, keep